Talking Cars. I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
I'm Steve Ellick.
And I am Jake Fisher.
So, Steve, you're looking pretty good, rested, etc. Despite the fact that you and Anita have been burning the midnight oil.
Yeah.
For reliability. It's the time of year where Steven and Anita are crunching all of the numbers on reliability. So we're going to jump right in. Any big, blockbusters, new news, etc. about reliability?
I mean, there are a couple things, big news as always is Tesla. It's now top 10 in terms of new car reliability, which is a big change because in the past, they've had issues with the Model S, the Model X. There's just a bunch of features and a ton of stuff in those cars. And the Model 3 and the Model Y had build quality issues, examples of like pieces of hair being in the paint or mismatched panels. That's, in the past.
Yeah.
Their build quality for the Model 3 and the Model Y are much improved. It's like the story of, they're a new brand, or they were a newer brand.
Right.
They've been around for, 12, 13 years now. They've figured out the build quality part. They know they're starting to get how to build cars kind of like the legacy automakers used to know. And I mean, their powertrains have always been pretty solid in terms of reliability. So, that's one big thing.
I remember when they were building them in a tent.
Yeah,
remember
exactly.
for a while?
Those days are gone.
I mean, look, you talk about build quality. I mean, there was like some reports, that the trunk wouldn't close, you know? I mean, like things like that. And there was electronic issues. There was all different types of problems with that, which you would expect with a new automaker, with a, building a new plant and all these things. But they've been around for a while, I mean, that's the thing. And also, they're not really redesigning. I mean, yes, they've redesigned the 3 and the Y, not major redesigns. I mean, they aren't like huge changes in those.
It's the evolution rather than
they're
revolution.
more evolutionary.
Yeah.
And then you look at like the Tesla model, you look at the S and it's kind of like, wow, it's been around for a long time without a redesign. It's like, who does that?
Right.
But when you do that, you don't really change the things that work, or you refine the things that don't work, you finally get it right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it gives confirmation to time under their belt. I mean, I think you said, Jake, when we were talking, they're the only automaker with a 5 to 10-year-old purely electric vehicle fleet out there, purely electric. So it's kind of neat. Now, interestingly, before we get off Tesla for a minute, I think you had said, that's new car reliability. I want to make sure we differentiate. Right. When you look at used car reliability for Tesla, the picture is not as glowing.
Yeah, they are dead last for used car reliability. I mean, and that's the beauty of having all these lists that we have. We have new car reliability. That's, one way of looking at it. We have used car reliability. If, a 5 to 10-year-old Tesla, that is back to that, when they were building them in tents kind of era, and those are still unreliable. So it really depends on whether you're looking for new car reliability or long-term reliability.
Well, and to be clear about it, so that list is really, we call it used car reliability, but it's really 5 to 10-year-old vehicles out in the fleet.
Right.
And what's interesting about that is, and yeah, we do have all these lists, but sometimes it can be confusing because what we're not saying is like, oh, this car is really good when it's new, but when it gets older, it's not good. We're looking at different vehicles, right? So when you're looking at the new car, we're looking at cars that are model year, the last 3 model year vehicles. When we're looking at the other list, we're looking at what they were producing 5 to 10 years ago, which was different. And again, they were going through those growing pains, and they didn't quite have it quite right.
So it's not necessarily that their vehicles all age poorly. It's that they were built at a time when they weren't as good being built originally.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, you look back in time and, we weren't recommending some of those vehicles. We weren't recommending those vehicles. And lo and behold, 5 years, 10 years later, they still have more than their fair share of problems. These vehicles now that we're seeing are pretty problem-free. We'll see what happens 5, 10 years down the road. It could be very different.
And then there are opposite examples. Like look at Mazda and the used car reliability. The 5 to 10-year-old cars, Mazda's like third place in used car reliability. This year for new car reliability, Mazda's, they've dropped a substantial number of spots. They introduced the CX-90 a couple years ago, the CX-70. These are ground up, rear wheel drive platforms, longitudinally mounted engines, new transmission, everything. And it kind of bucks that trend of what we say of conservative evolutionary redesigns. These things things are brand new. And, it shows with new car reliability. It's dropped the Mazda.
Yeah, and that's a company that's kind of changed their way, right?
Yeah.
And you look 10 years ago, and what was Mazda, right? They were kind of inexpensive, fun, simple vehicles, sporty, a lot of road noise, a little noisy, but kind of. Now they're kind of almost trying to be this luxury automaker, right? They're very kind of quiet and cocoon-like, and it's a different animal. They got the turbos, they're all throughout the line. So, yeah, it's more about the company changing than it is about they fall apart when they get old. That's not really what we're talking about.
And I think that Mazda that was reflected in the road test scores too. We didn't love the more recent Mazdas like we did the older Mazdas, if you will.
Yep.
Any other big news in there?
Not necessarily shocking. Toyota's first this year again, and that's because they have improved the unreliable vehicles that they had in the past, like in the last couple of years were the redesigned Tundra and the Tacoma. They are better now. The Tacoma is above average. The Camry redesign last year has improved. So that's maybe not that much of a surprise, but it's worth noting that, Toyota just has the same plan, just continue conservative redesigns and evolving their cars, and it pays dividends in terms of reliability.
Speaking of evolution, not revolution, just look at Toyota. Yeah. I think you said too, Buick and Lincoln are up there in brand.
So Buick and Lincoln are, that's another interesting list is we look at maintenance and repair costs. So they are one of the least expensive brands to maintain, which is interesting. They're, Lincoln's a luxury brand, you'd think, whereas you have other luxury brands like Mercedes and BMW, which are expensive to maintain and repair. You can go out and get a Lincoln, and it's really just utilizing Ford parts, which are inexpensive. So.
Yeah. So yes, we have many lists from our survey, and maintenance and repair is one of those. Now, previously, actually, it was Tesla that we were looking at going back 10 years of maintenance and repair costs. But yeah, they were kind of outpointed. It was it's Buick and Lincoln, and even Toyota and Hyundai, and these cars are actually doing better in the long term. And I think it's exactly what you said. It's a combination of being reliable, but it's also a combination of having parts that are cheap.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe Buicks aren't quite as reliable as Toyota, but like the parts are just cheaper, and it's just very easy and cheap to maintain. And but that Tesla stole this pretty well because again, the maintenance there is simpler, right? There's not a lot of, you're not changing timing belts and spark plugs and all that.
Well, I think you said there's kind of two ways to get there. You can be super reliable and never need a repair, or you can have some repairs, but your costs or your parts are inexpensive.
Right.
So Toyota doesn't need them a lot. Parts may be more expensive, but you don't need them a lot versus
it's
another way.
Cost versus convenience really is, what
and you
what you're
touched on Tesla, electrification in general. I'll let you elaborate.
Yeah, I mean, that's another big point this year for new car reliability.
Yep.
Electrification in general, when we talk about EVs and plug-in hybrids, they tend to be about 80% more problematic than gas cars when you look at the last 3 years. And that is a trend that we have seen that's been similar the last couple of years. Yeah. The reason behind it is because it's still new technology. Right. Not only are the powertrains new, they have batteries and electric motors, which, the charging unit and the inverters can fail, but even their climate systems, like their heaters are different on an EV or a plug-in hybrid. And so we do see these types of vehicles be more problematic for now until they can work out the kinks.
Both EVs and plug-in hybrids, because they have to have all that additional equipment. But that's it, until they could work out the kinks. And then if you're looking
Tesla,
right, well, and Tesla and Nissan, right. I mean, the Nissan Leaf has been around for a long time.
Yep.
They're in their third generation they're going into of that vehicle.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're interested and you're concerned about reliability, you don't want to have like the early adopter problems. Look for an automaker who's been doing it for a longer time.
Yeah. Exactly.
So in a perfect world, an EV should be less costly to maintain, but it has to get to a certain status quo in terms of newness to get there.
And because there are so many so many automakers getting into the game, they're going through the same learning curve.
But The sweet spot of electrification is hybrids in terms of reliability. I mean, as far as a trend, they are the most reliable. And the reason behind it is they're being built by reliable automakers like Toyota and Lexus and Honda. I mean, Toyota's been building the Prius for a quarter of a century. So they have this technology down already.
Yeah. And it's not as new technology, right? And to your point before, it's like when you have a hybrid vehicle, you don't have to have an electric heater. You don't have to have the heat pump doing the AC. You still have normal ways of doing these things. You don't have to have a charging system. There's no plug that goes into the car. So it's actually, again, it's not that they're more or less reliable than gas counterparts. It's just you're not taking a hit for the complexity, but you are gaining so much in terms of fuel economy. And actually, in these days, it's refinement too. They tend to be quieter and smoother and all these things.
But to your point, they have the components of both. You'd think that it would be more complex because now they got an electric system and a regular, internal combustion engine system.
Yeah.
You'd think it would be more complex.
What's interesting about it too
is, to your point, it's reliable auto.
And a lot of the automakers that do hybrids, they sometimes don't have the turbo, for instance. So like for instance, we see so many small displacement turbos now but sometimes the hybrids don't have the turbo. So there's complexity other ways for sure.
And they add quiet and refinement and all that.
Sure.
Too. The other element that it recently came up on an episode of the Smoking Tire podcast where we got a mention because the idea was owner satisfaction, which is the other piece that comes out of these big surveys that you crunch the data. And the dichotomy that can happen with either a model or a brand that people love, but isn't necessarily commensurate in terms of reliability. And I know there were a couple of those. I think the one they talked about was Rivian.
Yeah, and that's the classic example of Rivian owners. They expect a certain thing when they buy the vehicle. And I think, Rivian delivers on that. That sends their owner satisfaction scores super high. It's the question we ask is, if you had to do it all over again, would you buy this car again? And Rivian scores excellently for that. But those same owners will tell us all the issues that they do have with their car.
Right.
So they are last for new car reliability. And it's just this interesting dichotomy between the two.
Yeah. So I mean, please go check out all these lists that we have. You can see them. They're all available in front of the paywall. So even if you're not a member, you could see those. And like Rivian, it is dead last when it comes to reliability. It is number one when it comes to owner satisfaction. And I think that's exactly right. It's what did they expect when they bought a Rivian? Yeah. I would guess they didn't choose the Rivian because they wanted the most reliable vehicle. You're getting a new automaker with a new plant and new technology, and you're getting a lot of stuff that you want. And maybe they understand that they may have more than their fair amount of problems.
Yeah.
I'm always surprised. Maybe I'm not surprised. A couple things we worked on over this past year where reliability trickles into other areas. So working with Emily on safety. When we ask people, what makes a safe car in your mind? One of the top answers is it safely gets me from A to B. It gets me where I need to go. And the word was reliably. So reliability is not just I don't have any problems. It trickles into people's perception of what's a safe car. We did the sustainability survey, specifically asking people what to you makes a sustainable or a environmentally friendly vehicle. Of course, fuel economy comes up right up at the top, range, all of that. The second answer, I can keep the vehicle for a long time without having to get rid of it. Again, it's reliability that interweaves to all these other topics that we touch all the time. So I just feel like the data, and again, why you and Anita spend so much time on it.
It's a big part of everything. And that's a big part of, the other thing that we have the list of the overall score. Yeah. Which automakers make the best vehicles. And our overall score is very unique because we're bringing in reliability. Yeah. Yes, I've seen the internet and there's other sources of which are the best cars or what auto journalist likes this car better than the other one. But we're bringing in all that safety information and reliability information, which is so important. And just going back to the safety idea of reliability, and we talk about reliability, we talk about all these different things. And sometimes there's paint and body issues, but we weigh
Right.
the problems that are safety related, about not, the major issues, engines, transmissions, electric motors, charging problems, things are going to keep you stranded way more. And that's also something different. There are other sources of information about, quality or whatnot.
Yeah.
We're really the only ones that are heavily weighting those things that are safety related. So even if there's issues with like the paint or something like that, we'll talk about them, but that's not going to make it so we're not recommending the vehicle for that.
I think it's good point, just briefly, Stephen, because our members, not our members, often say you're biased or et cetera. I just want to make it clear, this reliability data, it's not our data, it's your data, it's our members' data. Just give a quick rundown of how the data is collected, what you do with it, how many vehicles we get, and just to give people a sense of where it comes from.
Yeah, so we collect these in 2 surveys during the year, and we ask, what problems did you experience with your vehicle in the last 12 months? We ask our members about that. And this year we had about 380,000 vehicles represented in our survey, which is huge. And then we crunch the numbers on that and look at what problems they have. There are up to 20 potential trouble spots that we look at, where, as you mentioned, Jake, some of them are more severe than others. If your transmission needs to be replaced, that's more important than a in-car electronics problem that can be remediated by an over-the-air update. So a transmission problem or an engine problem will be weighed more. We take all of that into consideration and weigh to get this overall verdict. And when we calculate reliability within a model year, that is when it is compared relative to other model years. If you look at a 2024 model, or like a 2024 vehicle, call it a Toyota Camry, we look at how it compares in reliability compared to other 2024s. Is it above average, below average, average? And then we take the last 3 model years to predict our new car predicted reliability, as long as there wasn't a redesign during that time. So way more goes into it than that, but that is probably the highest level explanation.
That's Stephen's bags under his eyes for the last couple months, but way more goes into it.
But to your point, you give us this data and we calculate based on what problems you reported to us to tell you what it is. So you told us that Toyota's the most reliable brand.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. And I don't want it's always, I think it's important to make clear to people that we don't expect cars to be trouble-free as they age. It's just, what is the expectation of that older car to other models of that same vintage?
Right.
We expect things to happen, but are they happening more than your Toyota Camry example? Perhaps. So if your cars are reflected in that data, you rock, because it's an extensive survey. It takes some time to fill out, and we've hopefully made it easier to get to. But look for all of the lists that Jake talks about, brand level, model level. It's big consideration in what becomes recommended for the next model year in that new car prediction. So I think it's interesting too that when new reliability data comes in, that's the time that we open up those overall scores, because they can be reshuffled, changed with new reliability data, but it's also the time that we look at our road test scores. Are we changing something in there? We may make some tweaks in terms of safety. This year we're looking at cargo a little bit. So, but also there's some really nice things that have been done on consumerreports.org in terms of how you look at the ratings charts.
Our ratings are completely new. Our digital group, headed by fabulous Nicole Lucas, has just completely redid the way our ratings are. So I just kind of invite people to go check it out, because you can go sort by a zillion different aspects, including like things like that came up on Talking Cars, like cargo. How about how high the cargo is? You could actually sort by those, filter by those. So it's just really, really nice to be able to kind of like compare these vehicles, resort them, and just, there's so much information that we collect on this information to actually just allow you to kind of play with that data. The whole experience is way better now.
Yeah. You could tailor it to your compare. From someone who just bought a car, absolutely use those compare charts of lining up next to one another. My Ridgeline and my Ford Maverick. That's what it really came down to. But
good choices.
So yes, tons of new data. Look at consumerreports.org. It's all coming out, and you will see all the reshuffling, and Stephen will get some sleep. So moving on to your questions. We love them. Keep them coming. Consumerreports.org/talkingcars. Any way you want to give them to us. The first one comes from Jeff in Calhoun, Georgia. I have mobility issues that require me to buy cars with the gas cap on the driver's side. Why do Subaru and other manufacturers put the gas cap on the passenger side? I can't tell you how many times, Jeff, where I pulled up to the pumps here and gotten back in the car and come around because forgetting, even though, just so everybody knows, there's a little arrow on that little fuel pump near your filler, near your gas gauge that tells you what side it's on. But theories for Jeff.
Well, being a car nerd, these are the types of things that keep me up at night too.
Yes.
And my theory on it is that it comes down to convenience versus safety. So if say you run out of gasoline, and you're on a road and you're pulled over in the shoulder, it's far safer to have that gas can or whatever and fill it from the passenger side because you're not standing in front of traffic. Right. So generally, Japanese vehicles, European vehicles, they generally go for safety. The domestic vehicles go for convenience, and usually they're on the left side. But the Japanese cars, now there are some Japanese cars that are actually designed for the American market.
Yeah.
And they'll be a certain way. But many of the Japanese cars, even though they're on the passenger side, when they come to the US market, they switch where the steering wheel is, and suddenly it's on the driver's side.
Right.
So it's kind of a mix when it comes to Japanese cars for those reasons. That's my theory.
I always thought it was about safety as well. But also, at this point, I feel like certain manufacturers have kind of gotten set in their ways. Some are on the left side, some are on the right side. And I think there's a good reason for that too in general, because people like to pull in, to a gas station on the right. If all the gas caps were on the left side, I feel like there would be too many on the same side. Whereas, if someone coming from the other direction, they could go to the opposite side, or they could go to the opposite side.
Turn around.
So it's almost like instead of having to turn around, and I think at this point, it's
about flow in the gas stations. Yeah. I love it. I also think there's a brand expectation. If you've been a Subaru loyalist, you want it on the side that you expect it to be on all of that. But I think and I do think probably so much more rare that you run out of fuel, though.
And on older cars, didn't they used to have them sometimes in the back? Like you open up the license plate on the Buicks.
My Mustang,
and then they were there. So
it was under the Mustang logo in the back, in the rear of the car.
Which is unsafe for other reasons, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
creamed when someone
but more convenient because you go on either side.
Yeah, there you go. It didn't matter where the filler was.
The big issue now is electric vehicles.
Right.
Because now it's not marked generally at all in the cars, but it's not even left and right, it's front or rear.
Yeah.
So I know every time I pull up in a charging station, I feel like I have to move the car 3 or 4 more times.
It's like a game. Like I'm going to pull in here. What are the odds that I've got this charger in the right place? How many times have you gotten in, backed it up, or turned it around? Well, maybe it's just me. I've definitely done it. Next question comes from Taro in Los Angeles, California. I'm looking for advice on how to save money and maintain my 2020 Toyota RAV4 hybrid by myself. With rising costs and inflation, I've become more concerned about car-related expenses and want to do what I can do on my own. So far, I've changed the oil, replaced a side mirror, and taken my car to Costco for tire rotation. I also plan to change the air filter soon. So, best resource we have is Mike Crossan. So we're going to go to Mike and get his take on what are the easiest and most cost-effective things you can do while still maintaining your car at home. Let's go to Mike.
You're absolutely right. You can save a lot of time and money by doing some of your own vehicle maintenance on your own vehicle. So what I would recommend is first taking a look at your owner's manual, because there will be warranty and service information that's included with it. And there's a lot of great information in there. For example, being in California, it's great. You're not going to have to deal with rust, but also you have additional warranty coverages on your vehicle. So there might be some items that you don't even have to repair yourself, and you can get those taken care of for free. But also, Toyota has done most of the work for you. They've listed out a maintenance log on your vehicle. So it tells you what to check and when the things need to be replaced. Now, you can go through that and figure out what you're comfortable with. And if you're comfortable doing it, save yourself some money and take care of that, or have a professional do it. But some of the things you can do are your own oil changes, tire rotations, check your tire pressures. You can do wiper blades and washer fluid. You can do bulbs in a lot of cases. And if you're having trouble maybe learning how to do those, there's a lot of great online video resources that will help you take care of those yourself. The one important thing is, though, you mentioned you have a RAV4 hybrid. When working on any hybrid vehicle, you want to make sure that you're safe because there is high voltage. Let me show you what that looks like. So under the hood of any hybrid vehicle, there's a lot going on. But the one thing you want to make sure is that you don't touch anything that is this bright safety orange. Those are the high voltage cables and components, and you absolutely want to steer clear of all of those. Let's come on in and take a look at what those look like. All right, so we've got our engine. Our oil dipstick is right here. Our oil fill is back here. But on this side, above our transmission, this is all the high voltage electronics. And these are the orange cables that we definitely do not want to touch. And you want to kind of leave all that stuff to a professional. But just taking a look under the hood here, your engine air filter is going to be right here. That's very easy to take care of. Certainly something you can do yourself. Your cabin filter is actually going to be inside the vehicle behind your glove box, but it is kind of located in this region. And that's another great maintenance item that you can take care of and save a few bucks.
So certainly for Taro, filters are an easy one. Jake, I think you did you do a short or something?
Yeah, back in the days of COVID, I think I did a was it a live thing or something? But yeah, I did a video with my son, and we were going through and changing the interior air filter and the engine air filter.
Yep.
And it's crazy easy.
Yeah.
So my heart goes out to you. Changing oil is messy.
Yeah.
You got to get under the car, and then sometimes it's a pain. Changing those filters, super simple.
Yeah. And it's funny, we've gotten charged. We've been in the dealer or wherever we are at the repair shop for something else. And they've said, why don't you let me do the filter while we're here? The part doesn't cost anything, but boy, the labor does. And they have to charge in 15, half an hour increments for labor. So now you're looking at, for a simple job of a cabin air filter or a engine air filter, $110.
Well, it's kind of funny too,
for the labor.
Or if you change your oil, right, and they'll take the filter out and they'll show it to you, and they're like, "See, it's dirty. Should I change it?" And it's like, no. It's like, you've already done the labor.
Yes.
Because there's no labor involved. It's like 2 clips and you're done.
But again, they're charging you for some labor, which is very expensive. We would love to hear, let's open. Is there maintenance things even on a 2020 RAV4? What do you find is most cost effective or that you're doing at home? We'd love to hear your responses. We'd love to hear your responses for Jeff. What's your theory on why the fuel fillers are on different sides of the car? Maybe there's something we haven't thought of. So get back to us. The last, it's not even a question, it's a comment, comes from Mark in Fishers, Indiana.
Hello, Talking Cars podcast. While listening to your recent podcast about tires, you answered a question from a listener in Colorado about all-wheel drive on EVs in the snow. As a Rivian R1T owner, I am partially biased, but wanted to highlight that there are some vehicles that do have a snow-specific mode in their EVs. In particular, the Kia, Hyundai, and Rivian EVs all have some form of snow mode. Now, your listener didn't highlight whether he's having trouble stopping or having trouble with the instant torque accelerating, but that's what many of these snow modes do, is adjust the torque application when you're accelerating and also adjust the one pedal drive characteristics when you're decelerating to adjust for the slipperiness in snow. Maybe that answers this question or maybe not, but it's worth another look for him to investigate Rivian and Kia EVs in particular. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mark. And he's right on the money, because if you look at Rivian's site, it says the snow mode in their Rivian makes the pedal response gentler for smoother acceleration, and it uses lower regenerative braking setting to prevent wheel lockup during deceleration. I go back to our old school advice of, in the snow, drive like you had a hot coffee cup on your dash. Make your movement smoother. Yep. Easy acceleration, easy braking. And that's what that snow mode, to Mark's point, does in the Rivian. Yep. I would personally drive my Rivian, if I had one, all the time in snow mode, knowing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also for, that really rapid deceleration that you get, that's could be annoying. And yeah, you can put it in snow mode and get rid of that. It's the only way.
Yes. We didn't realize that. I think if I'd known Mark's answer then, or if I'd checked it out, I might do that. And of course, Ryan and Gordon stressed the importance of having the grip. you need to have that grip as well. But thank you, Mark. Great advice. Love that too, if anybody has great advice for others that are asking these questions on the podcast. So with that will do it for this episode. Check out all the new presentation, reliability, owner satisfaction, scoring, consumerreports.org. We've talked about brand a lot, but again, if it's an individual model you're interested in, of course, that will all be available with new data at consumerreports.org as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.